victory. Often identified with gold medals, first place, 100%, numerical and quantitative terms. That's how victory is typically defined. But is that all there is to victory? I look at it a little differently. If it were as easy as counting first, second, and third place, we really wouldn't need to understand what victory means. So, let's see an example of a man who has won by voluntarily giving up a gold medal at the Olympic Games. This is a story of Olympian braveheart Eric Liddell, whose tale has been immortalized in the 1984 Oscar-winning film Chariots of Fire. Eric was a simple man and he was a Scotsman. He was deeply religious and he was the world's champion runner in the 100-yard race. At that time, it wasn't called the 100-meter race, it was the 100-yard race. In the 1924 Olympics, which were to be held in Paris, it was assumed that Eric would win the gold medal in this race. He was already renowned as the world's fastest runner over that distance. Eric went to Paris along with the rest of the contingent from his land. And when they reached there, they found that the heats, the preliminary races for the 100-yard dash would be held on a Sunday. Eric, on the spur of the moment, said he would not run. Everybody was amazed why. Eric said, in a simple tone, the heats are on a Sunday. The Sunday is supposed to be the Sabbath. It's the day of rest. According to my religion, no work can be done on that. For me, this is work. I will not run. No big press conference call to announce the event. No publicity gained from the refusal. Just a simple, I will not run. He gave up the gold medal, which would surely have been his. That's not the end of the story. Then were announced the heats for the 400-yard race. It was a race which Eric had hardly ever run before in his life. He was not at all used to running that distance professionally. But since those heats were not on a Sunday, and since he had come all the way to Paris along with his contingent, and since he had disappointed his countrymen by not running, he said, let me run the 400-yard race. Everybody laughed and said that he would make a mockery of himself. It's not something which can be done on the spur of the moment. It requires a lot of practice. He said, it's fine, I will run. Eric ran. He won the gold medal against the best 400-yard runners in the world. And it is said that the roar that erupted in the stadium in Paris crossed the English Channel and reached his native Scotland. Of course, this is just a myth, as are many other myths that have grown around this great man, but all that has been said so far is fact. Again, his story does not end here. After the war, Eric was in China, and there he was put in a prisoner of war camp by the Japanese. The war was ending. But along with Eric were many other European prisoner families. Their children were too small to understand why they were behind bars. They used to cry, they used to quarrel, they used to fight. And Uncle Eric, as they called him, organized sports for them so that they could remain occupied and their energies could be channelized in a positive direction. He did this also on Sunday and played along with them. This man who gave up a gold medal in the Olympics for his principles now gave up those principles to help the little children. Ultimately, he died of a brain tumor in the prison camp. And when the news of his death reached his native Scotland, all of Scotland mourned. So it is up to us to decide how we define victory. Is it by a gold medal alone? Would you say Eric was a loser? He certainly was not. This is what is meant by defining victory in different terms. According to this 4V model, victory is not quantitative alone. It is what your values and your vision define it, and what your valor stands up for at the right time. If, like Eric in your organization, you refuse to tread a wrong path to gain some corporate victory, and you lose out a large contract, would you be a loser? No. Because your vision and your values and your valor have ensured that this is the path of victory for you. Take the case of Marlon Brando, who played the role of the Godfather, a brilliant role which is still remembered today. On the day of the awards, when his name was called out as the winner of the Best Male Actor for this movie, Marlon Brando did not walk up on stage. Instead, it was a Red Indian lady called Shacheen Little Feather. She just passed away in 2022, so it's recent news, but this award was over 30 years ago. She came up on stage and everybody was astonished as to who she was and why she came up when it was Marlon Brando's turn to come. She took out a letter and she started reading, and she said, "I'm representing Marlon Brando today, and he apologizes for not being here in person. He is at a place where he is needed more." Throughout history, the white people in Hollywood have always represented the Red Indian as somebody who is the villain and the cowboy as somebody who is the hero. Because of this, Red Indians have lost a lot in this land. And right now, Marlon Brando is in a place where Red Indians are being persecuted in a particular reservation, and he's there to defend them and fight for their rights. He has sent me over here to represent him and to say that he thanks you all for offering this honor, but he refuses to accept this award. Imagine, would you call him a loser? Another man, speaking of the Oscars, who gave up the award was George C. Scott, who played the brilliant role of General Patton in the movie titled Patton. He was so passionate about the role that he had even read 13 biographies of Patton before doing the role. It's a masterpiece. When his name was announced as the winner, he was asleep on his farm far away. And he said, even if I had won, I was not going to accept it, because I do not agree with this methodology of making actors compete against one another for a prize. Different people, different reasons, all victors in their own right. So ladies and gentlemen, this is what victory is about. It depends on you as to what you define it and how you would like to be perceived at the end of the day by your stakeholders, by your constituents. There are other aspects to victory. Sometimes people start fast, they take up a lot of projects, and then they fade out because the burden of what they've taken up is not possible for them to physically carry out. MS Dhoni over here stands out shining. He's been known as a great finisher, and every possible great cricketer on earth from every country has said that there is no finisher like Dhoni. Would you like somebody to be a great starter in your organization, or would you prefer them to be a better finisher? So many times we take up projects enthusiastically in the heat of the moment, and then they lie abandoned. But people who take up a few projects of their choice, who refuse many others, are able to channelize their energies and focus everything on those so that they ultimately can finish them well. Victory is of different types, but at the end of the day, it is up to you to define what victory for you and your organization really is. Take the corporate example of Jack Welch, who took over as the CEO of the gigantic General Electric. It was a company known for innovation, founded by Thomas Edison. But by the time Jack Welch came in, it had become a giant, and he encouraged his own philosophy. GE had many divisions, and he said, if we are not number one or number two in any of the industries in which we are, we will close down those units. And that's exactly what he did. He looked at victory as a numerical or purely a competitive component. Nothing wrong. That was his definition. He took GE to great heights. The point over here is, victory for one may not be victory for another. So your definition of victory is very, very critical, and it depends upon the vision, the values, and the valor that have gone before. There's another aspect to victory. Often, we have a fixed idea in our minds. This is what we are going to achieve. Let's call it Plan A for convenience. People are so rigid in their minds that this is the only definition of victory that I have. This is what I want to achieve. That there's absolutely no flexibility that they keep in their plan. This is a fatal mistake as far as victory is concerned. Napoleon Bonaparte had said, if I make a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and a plan D, I'm sure that my opponents will make a plan E. This is how far ahead people think. The best leaders think, like chess masters, who can actually visualize 10 moves ahead on a chessboard. A friend of mine, Lieutenant General I. Singh, who was head of United Nations peacekeeping force in Syria and Golan Heights, has said the same thing, that in war, plan A, plan B, plan C and plan D are useless if you don't have an E, F, G and H. You have to plan in advance for other elements of victory, apart from the one which would be your first choice. As organizations, we are living in a very, very dynamic environment. Anything can happen anytime. Laws can change, competition can come in, our key people could leave. At the end of the day, there are so many things which could shatter our dream of plan A. In that case, if plan A has been your only definition of victory, you lose. A plan B, a plan C, a plan D, all thought out in advance, are extremely critical elements of victory for organizations today. If you can do this, if you can think far ahead, if you can have a variety of options at your command, you and your organization are winners.